Good evening, welcome to the Buck Stops here. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program tonight, as India finally signs a 58,000 crore rupee deal for 36 French Rafale fighters, the tension on either side of the border remains high. The Pak Air Force lands its fighter aircraft on its national highways to showcase capability and welcomes Russian soldiers in the Gilgit area for joint exercises. This is senior government sources tell us that they know the national mood and that is something that will be respected. All infiltration bids will be eliminated as India continues to deal with Pakistan through all possible means. But first, the big story, the Rafale deal. India finally inducting the state-of-the-art French fighter, an acquisition that's been in the works for close to a decade. When this aircraft enters service with the Indian Air Force starting 36 months from now, there will be no fighter jet in service in either Pakistan or China as capable of hitting targets deep inside enemy territory. In fact, the Rafale being acquired by India will be more advanced than the variant being operated by the French Air Force and Navy, primarily because of a host of India-specific additions that redefine the fighting potential of the aircraft.
I'm pleased to inform you that India has signed an agreement for procurement of 36 Rafale aircraft with weapon systems, with 5 years complete spares and maintenance, performance-based logistic, Indian enhanced special provisions, achievement which I think will give Indian Air Force the required potency in terms of penetration and capabilities.
The overall value of the deal for 36 jets is 58,000 crores, and that includes weapon spares and logistic support. There are performance-based clauses if the jet isn't available for at least 75% of the time when the Indian Air Force requires it. If it's not available, there are financial penalties for the manufacturer, Dassault. It's taken India nearly 10 years to close out this deal, a deal that seemed dead in the water until the Prime Minister last year said India would buy 36 of the jets off the shelf from France. However, only 36 fighters are being acquired. The present contract does not have any provision for additional Rafale jets. Vishnu Shom for NDTV. All right, well, that's going to be a very major acquisition for the Indian Armed Forces. It's something that's been in the works now. Well, the process of acquiring fighter aircraft for almost a decade. The Indian Air Force has finally selected this aircraft and they finally signed that dotted line. All of this comes at a time when there is that continued tension on both sides of the international border and the line of control. Pakistan has showcased some of its ability by exercising its fighter aircraft on their national highways. This at a time when the Russians have arrived to actually hold joint exercises with Pakistan in POK. Contrary to what was believed either, these exercises are taking place in POK in Gilgit-Baltistan. Joining us now to debate some of these threads, Ajay Shukla, defense analyst, former colleague of mine and a former colonel in the Indian Army, Air Marshal P.S. Ahluwalia, former Western Air Command Chief. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We'll be joined in a few moments by Brigadier Javed Hussain from Pakistan, and with me, the spokesperson of the BJP, Nalin Kohli. I'd like to thank all of you very much for joining us. Ajay, in the past, you've had concerns about the Rafale acquisition. You felt it was too expensive. You felt that there were better options. Do you think it's time now to amend those views, or at least some of those?
Oh yeah, the decision has been taken, and I don't think it serves a productive purpose now to keep continuing the argument. One has taken a certain stance, the government has. It is going ahead with the purchase, and now I think the focus of the discussion should shift onto how best you can use the aircraft, how best they can be brought into service, how quickly they can be brought into service, and how they can be integrated into the fleet. I still have my reservations about several things, and the biggest one of them now, quite contrarily to what I was saying earlier, I'm now believing that we are buying too few of them, because if you have to buy an aircraft for the IAF's fleet, you need to buy it in large enough numbers that it makes economic sense to put in place the spares, logistics and infrastructure that would have to be set up to support those aircraft. So I was a bit alarmed to hear today that there's no options contract for beg your pardon, an additional 18 aircraft, which is normally there in most deals, a 50% option. So in case they do need to buy more, it would have to be a fresh negotiation.
Air Marshal, would you agree that that the fact that we aren't buying a single additional Rafale beyond these 36, unless there's a fresh contract, that may well happen, but then the process starts right from the beginning. Isn't that a concern? Because the IAF has always said that 36 jets isn't going to cut it for us. You have a relieved Indian Air Force accepting these planes, but it's not an ideal scenario by any means.
Well, you see, numbers is one thing that we have to take with a little bit of caution, in the sense that this process has taken, in any case, 5 years to decide that you wanted this aircraft versus the Typhoon, that's the Eurofighter, and took another 4 years after that to at least get these 36. The question is, what will be enough? I don't think even 126 will not be enough. If you do not plan properly, I think I need to see what my threat is. What is my threat? Pakistan?
And China.
China, yes, but even China, if you collude together, which is unlikely to happen, unlike what people think, my perception is that it will not really happen. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, we've got a ratio of 2:1. And not only forget about the numbers, the question is, when you do your war planning, I've got my threat assessment based on actuals, based on what will be my targeting, based on what will be my role, based on what will I do to support the ground surface forces. So taking that into consideration at this point in time, I think 36 is a good number. When we got the Mirage 2000, and I bought them myself, as you're aware, 1984, 1985, that was the time we got only 2 squadrons. But they were enough, and gradually now we built up to 3 squadrons. The question is, with 36, if I had my way, I'll make 3 squadrons. Instead of having 18 over there, I'll have 12. And these will be more than enough to take care of the threat that I've got. Apart from that, you've got the Su-30s, you've got the Mirage 2000, the Mirage 2000 upgrade. I mean, it's superior to the F-16.
Okay, Nalin, let me ask you a political question. Obviously, this is a great enhancement of our ability. But the fact remains that do we have the leadership or do we have the willingness as a country to use technology like this? We weren't able to respond immediately after Uri. A decision was taken. And therefore, all of this needs to fit into a larger system. Do we have that system of response in place?
There are 2 parts to this. First, obviously, my answer is not going to be based on a technicality, because that's not my area of expertise. No. However, I think what's important is the process has really started. It's been a really long gap between purchasing aircrafts, almost 20 years if I am correct. And once you get that going, there's no end to it, in the sense that we are now in, I think, the global acquisition market for over 100 billion, probably 150 billion. Yeah. Which means that a lot of areas, not only the Air Force, but the Army, the Navy and other areas need to be plugged in, keeping a much more longer term perspective. And a process starting is important. That's one. So I think it's good that it's concluded. It's and 36 as an aircraft, as he's mentioning, Sir's mentioning, that's a good start. Now, what all has to be done thereafter, I'm sure this is not going to be the end. Ammunition was one of the first things that even Defence Minister Parrikar had flagged. This deal was also dead. There was a time that nobody believed that this acquisition would take place. Then the Prime Minister Modi and President Hollande got together and revived it, and then the defence ministers and the countries have taken it further. Now let's get to the political part of it in terms of usage. We are not a war-mongering country. But I think in terms of the Uri attack, we need to understand that this is possibly an inflection point in terms of Pakistan, because over the last 70 years, we've tried every alternative under successive governments, including war. And Pakistan hasn't desisted over the last 30-35 years from its policy of terrorism and as an instrument of state policy. So now, when the Prime Minister has said, we shall not let this go unpunished, Defence Minister, the Defence Secretary, the Home Minister, the Finance Minister, the Home Secretary, NSA, everyone's been on this for the last now 4-5 days. So obviously the government is calibrating everything. There is a diplomatic initiative in the which we can see some of that elements. Now, what is to be used? One is defence preparedness. The other is there may be other options that the government may be contemplating. But as our DGMO has said, and that's critical, Lieutenant General Ranbir Singh, that we have to choose the timing, and whatever we do, it has to be of choice, not in terms of a reaction.
Brigadier Javed Hussain joins us from Pakistan. Good evening, Brigadier. Thank you very much for speaking to us. The news in Pakistan has been dominated by images of your fighter aircraft landing on your national highways as part of a training exercise. Are you spooked, sir, in Pakistan about a possible Indian attack or some sort of military retaliation, or is this all standard?
No, it's red alert has been sounded, and the Pakistani armed forces are ready to move into battle locations. And since our battle locations are pretty close to the border, so they will be several days ahead of the Indian defense formations.
So, sir, is it standard practice for Pakistani defense analysts and former soldiers to actually indicate that Pakistani forces are moving into their forward areas?
They are already there.
Right.
They are already there. Yeah, you take Sialkot, take Lahore. They are already there in their positions.
Right. And they are there in their positions always, or they are there because of what we have said over here, to the terrorist attack perpetrated by people from your soil?
No, that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. You say this is your point of view. This is your belief. My belief is different.
So
I
your
say that
belief is
there
that
are
they
two
just came
possibilities.
from, where did they come from, sir?
There are two possibilities. One, have you read that book and have you seen that
Which book, sir?
documentary Fahrenheit 9/11?
Yes, sir, we have, sir.
Well, similar noises were raised that the Mumbai Parliament attack was staged. The Mumbai operation was staged.
All right, Brigadier,
And
I don't like
this
to
Uri
interrupt
attack
my
has been
guests at
staged.
all, but sir, if you're
You
going to be
know?
ridiculous, then we don't exactly stage attacks on our own people. So let's stick to what is happening today, sir.
I thought that was part of the Balochistan strategy, where they stage attacks on their own people. Also the minorities in Pakistan. What was the percentage of Hindus in Pakistan? 10%, less than about 1% now.
Sorry to interrupt you, Nalin. You raised Balochistan. General Brigadier, I wanted to ask you, the European Union in the last few hours has reacted to the Baloch situation, and they have said that sanctions can be imposed on Pakistan. How do you react to that? These were senior people in the European Union saying perhaps Pakistan needs to be sanctioned for the human rights abuses in Balochistan.
Wishful thinking. It's not going to happen.
Really?
It's not going to
sir?
happen.
Why
it's
not,
just
sir?
like it's just like Russian and Pakistan exercises, military exercises.
Yes, sir.
All your channels, they had announced. They were corrected by me that these exercises are going to be held in two places. One in Cherat, which used to be the headquarters of the SSG, and the other one in the high altitude school in Gilgit-Baltistan, school of the SSG, which is the Special Forces, my ex-unit. So the Russian Special Forces personnel
So
have
are you
arrived.
trying to indicate that there is some
And,
sort of new special relationship between Russia and Pakistan?
Absolutely.
But
You
isn't it
bet.
strange then,
There
sir,
is.
that Russia and Pakistan and Russia and India are holding exercises today also in Vladivostok?
Pakistan,
So
China,
I
and
would
Russia.
assume you accept that we have a special relationship with them as well.
But you must also grant it to the Brigadier. One of the special relationships that he may want to flag is they have a special relationship with the Al-Qaeda, the LET, the Jamaat-ud-Dawla, Dawat. So they do have a special relationship with so many of these terrorist groups. In fact, their Prime Minister is also the first Prime Minister to speak on the UNGA eulogizing a terrorist. That's okay, sir. You are entitled to.
Nothing
We are
could be
looking
more
forward.
ridiculous than
No,
this.
we are looking forward to next
Your
year's
statement.
speech where he
I'm
can
very
also
sorry to
eulogize
say.
the Khalifa of
Absolutely
ISIS
ridiculous.
along with Osama bin Laden, because after all your hospitality a few walking kilometers away from your military headquarters, you couldn't extend it for a
Well,
longer
let
time.
me-
So in his memory perhaps
let
you may
me-
also install the Osama Brigade.